Hello, how is it going? Welcome back, everyone, to another Creator Hacks where we've got your back to get your membership right on track. All right, so that worked out pretty well. We've got myself here, Tyler, and the lovely Paulina as well. And today we've got an awesome presentation for you guys all about gamification and how to get your members more engaged, more involved, and just make your, overall experience more interactive and enjoyable. So let's see. We've got a few people in here. Let's see, where are you guys tuning in from? It's always great to see where everyone is tuning in from in the live stream. And I do want to make sure too that audio is sounding good and that. Okay, there we go. Hello. Hey everyone, what's up? Is audio sounding good before we dive into it? Just want to confirm if someone can post in the chat. There we go. Chicagoland. Love it, Mary. Hi. Okay, awesome. So it sounds like everyone can hear. Love to see that. Okay, there we go. Audio's great. We've got Blomfield. Is that awesome? Chester. Okay, wicked. Awesome to see everyone here. Welcome back once again. And yeah, let's jump into the slides here. And we are going to be kind of getting right into it because, in the past, we've spent a little bit of kind of getting into the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of these. And I know a lot of the times you guys just want to get right into the action, implement stuff. So we're going to try to make this a little more of a walkthrough and, walk you through the how-to versus just explaining, what is so great about it. So again, I'm from the marketing team. My name's Tyler, and we have Paulina here as well from customer success, bringing you a couple different perspectives on this and helping you guys implement what we're teaching. So what is gamification? That is what today is all about. Essentially, gamification is adding game-like elements such as tasks and rewards to create a more engaging, motivating, and rewarding experience for your users. It also applies, some principles of things like behavioral conditioning in terms of positive reinforcement, intrinsic motivation. People like to have autonomy, to have a purpose for something, and to achieve some sort of like sense of mastery or progress towards something. Gamification is really helpful in developing that. And then also an element of social influence as well, if you have things like leaderboards and stuff like that, which we will get to later. So why is gamification important for you or your business or your membership or whatever your digital program may be? Well, 70% of the 2,000 leading companies in the world use gamification. A key example of this is Duolingo. If you're not familiar with it, it's a language learning app. And essentially, they invested early on in creating a more gamified experience for every sort of stage of using their app in order to teach you different languages and that. And through that, they were able to acquire over 500 million users and become the #1 installed language learning app in the entire world, even though they were a relatively new app in terms of things like Rosetta Stone and other language learning apps that have come before them. So that is just one indication about how effective gamification can be, but it's not just for, billion-dollar companies like that. These are things that you can implement as well. So I'm going to kick it over to Paulina here to tell you about, content consumption.
Thanks so much. So I'm really passionate about this specific slide, just in terms of content consumption not equaling progress, because it's really easy in platforms like membership.io, but really in any video hosting platform, to track exactly how much content someone has consumed. But just because someone's watched, all 4 of the modules that you have of your course doesn't mean that they've actually sat down to implement what they've learned from those modules. So taking a step to think about gamification is a really good opportunity to diversify how you define progress for the programs that you have, because it allows us to open up and look at a lot of different ways that we can track actual meaningful progress. So this works for both courses and memberships. It's good for kind of self-serve programs like a course where you're taking someone through a rather linear curriculum. And then it's also a good opportunity to also think through gamification for things like memberships as well that do have recurring payments where someone could go through all the curriculum but still need that need for mastery in terms of maintaining what they learn as well. So we're really passionate about gamification because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about how it's just a matter of, setting up a couple badges that, collects points and just measures volume over quality. But what we see is that gamification in many ways is a mindset. It's a way of thinking about how we measure progress and being able to make sure that we keep that question to our members in terms of like how have you made progress pretty diverse to make sure that we're not just measuring again what specific videos or playlists they've consumed, but rather have they gone out and shown the work and implemented that specifically. So I think you can start to see the relationship between progress and gamification as a really valuable tool for retention. Stu McLaren's The Membership Experience Plus membership leverages monthly challenges as a form of gamification. So oftentimes running a online business, which Stu's members do, they run membership sites. It can get really overwhelming and sometimes you're not sure what to set your focus on for a month. So Stu's team leverages these really amazing monthly challenges. And I have to give credit to my colleague, Maddie, who spins all of these up specifically. But she uses these badges and this kind of tool for gamification as a way to highlight one specific thing that someone can do that month that makes a difference for their membership specifically. So there's a lot of different ways to build badges inside of membership.io. It's part of what we're here to talk about today. But if there's anything that we want you to kind of remember as we go through this, is that actually adding badges into the platform is really easy. I'll show you in about 2.5 minutes later on in this presentation how you can set up a badge inside of your account. But the harder part is thinking through that relationship between gamification and retention. And in many ways, that also manifests as customer loyalty. So one of the biggest objections that we see a lot is, well, my members aren't the gamification type. And they're not really a badge type of group. They don't really like that kind of playful element. And I think that's a valid rebuttal, but what we need to remember is that there's gamification outside of online programs as well. And I think, if anything, the online space is currently catching up with gamification. And there's a lot of real life examples where we're actually victims, if you will, of gamification. And I am certainly a victim of the Starbucks loyalty cards. It's a great way for me as a customer to boost my kind of overall deal value, if you will. So it's a nice way to kind of engage as well. So my point being here is that your members, even though they may not appear like they seem like the gamification type of people, they likely have 1 or 2 points cards in their wallet, which means that they likely are already a fan of gamification. So Tyler, I know that Starbucks is one really great example, so I'm going to pass it back to you to talk about what difference gamification has made for that company.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and Paulina touched on a really great point here. Not all gamification is, like what you saw in Duolingo, where it's, really colorful, playful badges and characters and streaks and things like that. Like it doesn't have to be that flashy. Any sort of, loyalty program or points system that you've gotten from, purchasing anything from a retailer, those are essentially applying gamification in a way to retain customers and get them coming back through the doors, purchasing more than perhaps they would without that. And so, again, one of the examples here, if we jump back to the slides, is Starbucks. So they decided to implement their, Starbucks rewards program. It was a very simplistic thing. I believe it's like 2 stars for every dollar spent, was what they initially launched with. But essentially it transformed their customer loyalty. And even though they're, one of the premium priced, coffee retailers amongst, most like sort of fast food cafes and coffee shops, but just by implementing their rewards program, they were able to boost their retention to 44%, which is nearly double the industry average of 25%. So that's a huge difference when you scale that out to, the thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers they have coming through the doors on a daily basis across all of their locations. It makes a really profound impact on, obviously the bottom line. And in addition to this, because it was such a simplistic program, it actually has a 90% satisfaction rate among their members too. So, 9 out of 10 people think it's great, and, they get benefits from it, and it keeps new customers coming back again and again. And that's really what the power of gamification is when it comes to retention. It's just getting people to, not only engage in the first place. That's, one element that gamification can help with, but it's getting them to come back and re-engage with things. And so there's a lot of unique ways that we can go about this. And it all kind of starts with creating these feedback loops. And so I'll kick it back to Paulina quickly. She'll kind of talk about what that is. And then we're going to get into the actual, the how to, the nitty gritty, and show you how you guys can start setting this up inside of your own programs.
So speaking of nitty gritty, one thing that I always like to highlight is what a feedback loop is. I think it's really useful to have this context kind of going into badge design, if you will, when it comes to gamification, because understanding kind of the process of creating a habit that happens with gamification is a really important tool to help people ease back into our content when maybe they've spent some time away from it as well. So gamification, I think, adds a little extra push to things that are hard, they're tough to implement inside of our programs. It's a really useful way to take a look at how we can help guide our members to having new habits that can help them kind of master the specific skills that your programs are meant to cover as well. So, habit loops generally consist of a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue is this idea of, what's the actual ask, what's the prompt, what's happening. The routine is the actual implementation of whatever that task is. And the reward is, of course, either the badge or the celebration that comes with completing that specific task. So you can see here how the feedback loop relates to Starbucks, but then also we can take a look at how this applies to many different spaces like membership.io. So I know, Tyler, you're a big fan of James Clear specifically. So any thoughts on this specific quote that you chose?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just ties into what Paulina mentioned here about, gamification helping create that sense of progress through the cue and, the reward essentially. And this just says, the most effective form of motivation is progress. And I think that's, very true. As humans, we like to always be improving and making progress. And I think as long as you can make that evident to your members and make it feel like they're making progress and they're seeing some results, they're going to be more likely to stick with it. And they're probably going to continue to put in the work and do the actions that are going to get them to the ultimate end result. And that's ultimately what we want to do with our digital programs, because the more you can serve your members, the better results they're going to get. And, the more positive sentiment you get around whatever your program may be. And, you get the word of mouth spreading and all that sort of things. And it just kind of snowballs, right? So it's just great things to add into your program. So let's get into, with this being said, let's get into, how do we actually implement this within your membership and specifically membership.io. So let's kick it back to you over there, Paulina, and I think we can walk them through how to start getting this set up.
For sure. So I'm pulling up a slide here that kind of covers the cue, routine, and a reward. We'll use one example just to kind of help this settle in a little bit more. If we take a look at something like the monthly challenge badges that we took a look at, the cue specifically would be whatever the challenge is. So leaning into Maddie's examples here, sometimes it's creating a social media calendar for a year. So the challenge here would be, create your social media calendar. You are letting people know that that's what the challenge is. Inside the prompt, so the specific routine, the members will actually complete this task. Between the prompt and the reward, we need some form of exposure. So as we mentioned, content consumption doesn't equal progress. It's not just a matter of someone who read the post where you said what you wanted them to do, we need some way to actually track accountability. So oftentimes we share that in the community. It's a nice way to kind of loop in and create a relationship between the engagement of the community and the engagement with the gamification as well. And then the reward can be a badge. It can also be a higher stake celebration as well. So we've done everything from free months of membership.io to physical merch like a pin or a sweater. So there's a lot of different potentials here to get creative. And what I would recommend is even if you haven't currently launched a program, you can run a monthly challenge on your social media accounts as well. So taking a look at gamification, yes, we're looking at it in the point of view of things like courses and memberships today, but a lot of what we're covering, like monthly challenges specifically, can also be implemented through social media. So they are quite diverse and far reaching just in terms of using this for paid members, but also using this for free members as well. So one more kind of James Clear quote here to wrap us up before we get into the implementation. And Tyler, any thoughts here just in terms of kind of what gamification encourages in terms of the progress and the meaningful kind of implementation?
Yeah, for sure. So I think this is a really unique quote. It says, if you can get just 1% better each day, you'll end up with results that are nearly 37 times better after 1 year. So I think, most people think sort of linearly, right? Whereas if you're getting 1% better each day, there's 365 days in a year. So the end of the year, I'm 365% better, right? Or about 3.5 times. But it actually compounds because each day that you get 1% better, then the next day you're adding 1% on top of that, right? So then you're 1.1%. And then the next day it compounds on top of that. And, essentially progress and just making those small steps forward, that's really like, compound interest when it comes to like the financial world. It's the same sort of thing here. If you can get your members to get just 1% better, it's not that they end up, 3 times better or 3.5 times better at the end of the year. It's almost 37 times. So that's a huge, huge, leap forward from where they're starting today versus where they could be in a year from now. And it all just starts with making that, tiny shift, that tiny improvement. And gamification is one of the easiest ways to, implement something like that, where it actually gets your members involved, engaged, interacting, and taking the necessary steps they need to, make that 1% progress each and every day. So
Awesome.
that is,
So
yeah.
with that, let's kick it to the slides and we'll take a look at how to set up gamification inside of membership.io. So, kind of already mentioned this. The process is relatively simple. So, I'm going to lead with just a quick video that shows you how to access the gamification menu inside of your account and how to actually create it. And then after I show you kind of the how to, I'll cover just some guidance just in terms of the two primary types of badges that you can create, some of the customization options there. And then we'll end off with just some fast action checklist items in terms of recommendations for getting your first badges created. So when we take a look at your account, you're going to want to click on the dashboard next to whatever hub you're looking to add a gamification element to. If your hub is set to private, if it's set to public, make sure it's set to private, as badges only work with private hubs. Next, you're going to click on settings here. And we're going to scroll down until we see the achievements menu specifically. Once inside of here, click add achievement and create a new one. And from here at the top, we'll give our new achievement a name. Can start simple. You can use a test one as well. I'm going to go with a easy manual badge just in terms of the first time someone signs in. And you can either select a milestone or manual badge. I'm going to select a milestone one, and I'm going to select unique logins. So I'm going to specifically give this badge to anyone who signs in at least once. From here, I can customize what that badge looks like. So you can see here, I'm going to type in a color, add in a background color. And as I'm making these changes, the screen behind me where the badge is, you can see it's automatically reflecting. There's a lot of different frames and also icons as well. So you can change the color of the icon. I'm going to add a green and then select a new icon that makes sense for that specific badge. And I think I'm going to change the color to black to make it stand out a little bit more as well. And that's it. So as you can see, in pretty much 2 minutes, I've set up that first badge. It does not take a lot of time. As I mentioned, gamification is a lot more kind of the mindset than it is the actual implementation, as gamification is only effective if there is a strategy behind how you're looking to measure those actions and why you're looking to measure them in order to be effective. So there's two primary types of badges that you can create. We have milestone badges, which are tied to very specific actions inside of a hub. And then we also have manual badges, which are designed to be essentially infinite. You can make anything into a manual badge. The difference between the two is a milestone one is given automatically when a specific action happens, whereas with a manual one, there's generally some sort of qualification that's needed from your end in order to give that badge to a person. So the first type of badge here, as I mentioned, is milestone. These are given automatically. The one that I created as an example was the unique login, but you can also track for completed content, whether that's a file, a playlist, or a combination. You can track time since joining, which is measured in days. So the most kind of common example that we see here is people giving badges after the first year, the second year, and the third year that people are inside of their memberships. Numbers of searches as well. So if you want to incentivize kind of content discovery, that's a really great one. And unique logins is great to see who your top fans are. So you can see, who's signed in 25 times, 50 times. But it's also really useful because when you're tracking the first login, I can create a segment inside of my account that tracks who doesn't have that badge. So in many ways, we're tracking who gets that badge, but who also doesn't get that badge. So it's just as important because we can only know who's slipping away if we're measuring the lack of activity, or in this case, the lack of that milestone badge specifically. So my recommendation to you as you're building these badges is to think through what actions are really useful to track, and then also making sure that you're taking the time to track who hasn't completed those specific milestones. An example of a milestone badge, we use this in one of Stu's courses, is just one for completing a playlist. So you can see here that Module 0 Foundation has 9 lessons. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 9 minutes specifically. I can give someone a badge for completing that specific playlist. And there's a lot of fun that you can have as well, just in terms of color consistency. So we like to do a lot of color coding here at membership.io. So you can see that the green that I selected with the little brick, which foundation bricks, made a lot of sense to me. But you can make sure that you match it up between the content as well, just to create that synergy between the content and the badge. So here's one example of a milestone badge. We have a second category of badges that are called manual badges. These can literally be anything. So you can give a badge to people who have, for example, delivered a membership share inside of your community, specific subject experts that have joined you, for a Zoom call. You can have monthly challenges as we've covered. So these are really specific actions that we want members to take. Any other kind of progress markers that make sense for your community. So this is very different for every course and community, which is why we specifically have these manual badges. It gives you the flexibility and the creativity to create ones that make sense for whatever specific conditions you're looking to measure. And then last one here, basically anything you need. So in terms of other examples, you can see how in Stu's course, we measure who's actually consumed the content, but we also measure who's taking the actions needed to implement what they learned from that module. So one example that we have here is we have this little take action section that kind of highlights, the 3 most important things that we want someone to take away from this specific module. And then next to that last kind of column here, we have the option to submit your homework. And then if you do that, you do get a specific badge. So we are using a Typeform and a Zap to kind of pass that information along. And that gives our team the ability to really qualify that progress to make sure that people are not only consuming that content, but also implementing what they learn from there as well. And then another use case for badges as well. So inside of Amy Porterfield's Momentum membership, she also gives badges to specific community members to celebrate really unique milestones. One really nice thing about these badges is that they are peer nominated as well. So the Blazer Award, for example, just goes to Masha specifically. So it's a nice opportunity to highlight individual members in addition to kind of groups of members as well when it comes to badges. And as we've covered as well, you can have a lot of fun when it comes to customization. There's specific things that you can edit. So this includes the badge name, the description, the shape, the icon, and then all of the colors associated with that as well. So there is a lot of flexibility just in terms of making sure that you're creating a badge that matches the overall look and branding that your course or membership has, so that it stands out as a badge, but also is consistent with all the other branding elements that you have going on. So that's kind of it for me. This is a relatively short creator hack just because, again, it's not a complicated process. Most of this is in the mindset in terms of really sitting down and thinking through what is content consumption versus what's actually progress, and making sure that we're creating badges around that specifically. So I'm going to bring up Tyler here as well. We have some homework for everybody here just in terms of getting started with your first badges. So let's take a look at that. And Tyler's going to walk us through what our homework to you is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paulina. So, yeah, gamification is only as effective as, your ability to actually follow through and implement it into your program. I feel like very often we kind of search for information and we get all this information and we try to learn, and then we never get around to actually implementing it. So, as a way to help you guys get this rolling in your programs, we've got 3 things on this fast action checklist that we want you to complete. After watching this, you have all the steps. If you missed something or you joined a little later, you can always come back to the YouTube video here and you can rewatch parts if you need to. But essentially, we want you to set up a milestone badge. Okay, so this is one to reward for the first login. Again, as Paulina mentioned, this is really critical in determining who's actually making use of your program and who might have been really excited about it, signed up, paid for it, and then completely forgot about it and never ended up actually getting into the program, right? And so if you have those stats, like Paulina said, if you create those segments as to who's logged in and gotten that badge versus who hasn't, then that allows you to follow up with those that haven't and perhaps, send them a little nudge or reminder email or something. Say, hey, I noticed you purchased the program. Super excited to have you in there. Notice you haven't logged in yet. Here's the link to log in, to check it out, or here's the first lesson. You can get creative with it as to where you want to direct them and how you want to communicate with them, but it allows you to reach out to them. And, it could just be something that they got distracted and then they kind of lost their train of thought and then it, got pushed to the back burner. Whereas if you can ping them, nudge them, and remind them, hey, you just bought this super awesome program, love for you to come check it out. Then they go, oh yeah, I totally forgot about it. Awesome, thank you. They sign in, they get a little badge for signing in, they get a little, little dopamine hit, they feel good. And they, they start consuming the content. They start making some progress. Okay, so that is number 1, the milestone badge for the first login. The second one is, again, just getting people to interact with your content, to search for things, to discover things. So we want you to set up a reward for 10 searches. So anyone who's completed 10 searches, they're going to get another badge that's like, way to go, way to dig into the content. I can see you're really engaged with this. Again, you can make it as creative as you'd like, but again, it allows you to see who's actually, digging into the content, who's trying to find things. You can actually see what people are searching for as well. So maybe there's certain topics or things that you might need to address earlier on in your program or, things like that. Like it gives you so many insights. So this is another crucial one that we want you to do. And third here is to create your first manual badge. We have the example here of creating a monthly challenge. But again, this can be as simplistic or complex as you'd like. It's really up to you, your creativity, what you think would work well for your program. And yeah, so the manual badges, kind of the sky's the limit with those. So feel free to play around with it. The monthly challenge is a really easy one to implement and to start out with. So if you wanted to do something like that, it could be, let's see, you are teaching people how to paint pets, right? And maybe the first one is, we want you to complete the first lesson and paint your first dog and share it in the community space, right? And then if they paint it and they share their picture of it, they get their monthly challenge reward that shows that they're consuming the content, they're implementing it, they're taking action, they're getting value from your program, and they're getting rewarded from it, right? So again, that's just one example off the top of the head. It can be as creative as you would like. So that is all your homework is. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Shouldn't take you too long. You don't have to worry about your dog eating it. So I'd like you to go ahead, implement that. And if you guys have any questions, we're going to take a few minutes here to address some of those. And hopefully you guys will have everything you need to get gamification up and running. All right. So let's see. We have a few questions here. Let me just pull up the chat for a second.
They're in Slack, very conveniently organized by
Perfect.
April as well. So I'm going to ask you the first question, Tyler.
Perfect.
There's a question from Amy. Amy wanted to know what video setup we're using for the live stream right now. So is it a webcam or is it a DSLR that's hooked up?
It is, it's a little bit more of a complex setup here because we have two people. We got a little producer desk over here with Phil, the man. So this is, you just saw what the setup is, but it's essentially two DSLRs in the middle with little monitors and then like a little production thing over here. But you can absolutely do this with a laptop and a webcam. It's just a matter of setting up your scenes. We use Ecamm because that works with Macs, but you can use things like OBS or there's lots of other programs out there that are free, and it doesn't take a whole lot to set up. I'm sure you could find a quick YouTube tutorial or something and be up and running within an hour or so. But yeah, that is essentially what our setup is. Hope that helps.
Awesome. I'm going to take this next question from Mary. So Mary says, any tips for making sure that members who don't achieve badges don't feel bad, excluded, or left out? Maybe making enough badges that everyone has the option to get some kind of badge. So definitely a couple options here, Mary. So number one, there's no redemption limits on badges specifically. So in the same way that anyone who gets 100 points through Starbucks can go and redeem a drink. I think that's what it is. Maybe it's more points. But case in point here is that we don't cap the number of badges. So anyone can get a specific badge that you have. And I think that there's a lot of potential here to make sure that you're diversifying the badges so that some are easier to get and some are a little bit more challenging to get. The monthly challenges that Stu's team sets up inside of their memberships, they're designed to be easy lifts. So they generally sometimes provide a script or a template. And the idea is that, you take that script into ChatGPT and fill it out for your business to create 50 social post ideas. So think about, it's okay to have some easier badges there, but they're also not meant to be participation trophies. So again, the idea is to encourage members to make progress. It's absolutely, I think, a great idea to make sure that progress isn't just, become a expert rock climber in a month, right? It's baby steps. We're incentivizing those habit loops. So think through maybe a couple badges that are designed to be easier to get for specific members. A really easy milestone one that you can create as well is give someone a badge for signing into the hub 10 times. It's pretty easy, but it does show their commitment to progress and can make a difference as well.
Perfect. We have another one here from Pilar. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but where do badges show up on the customer side and to whom is it visible? Pauline, I don't know if you want to speak to this as well, but I believe it's within the customer profile itself. And yeah, if you have anything else you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, so that's correct. So badges do show up on the customer profile. In addition to seeing what badges someone has, they'll also see any other badges that are available inside your program that they haven't received just yet. They show up kind of grayed out. And the nice thing is, if you do have a audience directory activated inside of your account, if as a member I land on Tyler's profile, I can see the badges that Tyler has earned as well. Some of the pages that we covered today, so a good example is Amy Porterfield has community badges as well. That's a custom page just to kind of highlight why specifically that member has achieved that badge. But just generally, they do show up on the profile as well.
Wonderful. Perfect. So, the next one here, we have from Mary. So, will this only work for video content or also PDFs? So again, you can have this work for either or both. It really just depends how you set this up. I believe, Paulina, perhaps you can chime in, but with the milestone badges, if you're trying to set up one for completing certain content or playlists that might be limited to video content.
That's correct. So there's no way to kind of mark a PDF as complete just in terms of like the progress needed for that milestone. So if you did want to track the fulfillment of a specific PDF, you could use a manual one for that. So an easy thing that I would do in that case is have a small call to action at the bottom of that PDF that says, "Hey, you got this far. We want to celebrate the fact that you've gone through this checklist. Send a photo of you with the completed checklist into the community." So again, that's that second stage. No, the third stage just before the reward. We want some sense of accountability in that feedback loop in order to verify and kind of show proof that the member did the work. So, while you couldn't use a milestone badge for a PDF specifically, you could absolutely encourage members to post their progress inside of the community, use a specific hashtag maybe for that monthly challenge, and then use that condition as a way to give them a manual badge for that as well.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I think, if you're providing a PDF, um, like Paulina suggested, throwing a picture up of you completing it, but I think even better is within that PDF, have some form of homework, right? Like, have some sort of action that they can take from what they're learning in that PDF, and then have them, share that in the community. That's a great way to, again, get them implementing what you're teaching, getting the value from it, that sort of thing. So that would be a suggestion there. I did notice I missed a question here from NumaWork Creative. Is there a way to automate awarding of manual badges? Paulina, do you want to speak to that? Because I know there is some automation stuff you could set up with Zaps and that. So I'll kick it over to Paulina here to answer that.
Yep. So in terms of automating manual badges specifically, a Zap would be the easiest way to do if you're specifically looking to automate, just making sure that members get it as soon as they fill that out. You still need some sort of trigger though. So the question you want to ask yourself is like, how are people submitting information to you that they've completed whatever it is that you want them to complete? So what we've used in the past is a type form. You could also use a Google form or any form as well. So have people submit a image or information into a type form. When there is a new entry of that type form, use a Zap to pass that person's email to give them access to a specific badge. So Amy's team sets it up that way. For any of the evergreen courses that we run that do involve some sort of additional, show your work, we do use Zaps for that as well. Keep in mind that the Zap part is optional, so you can just go into someone's account and give them a manual badge that way. It's just up to you and kind of your familiarity with Zapier and what your tech stack currently looks like. But there's some flexibility there depending on what you're looking to do.
Absolutely. We have another question here from Jennifer. And I know we kind of chimed in here in the chat and gave some suggestions there, but I have badges set up and have assigned them to people who qualify. But how do you raise this to the next level? I'm not sure they have checked out their badges or that they care. So one thing you could do is kind of like what Paulina had showed with Amy Porterfield and her community, having like peer nominated rewards, or having some sort of like area where you can showcase and spotlight your members that have achieved specific rewards. or badges, that's a really great way to kind of like call them out, to celebrate your members, and then also get, other people in your community being like, oh, wait, do I have that badge? Or like, how do you get that badge? Right. And it sparks that curiosity, and it allows you to, celebrate your community, and also, incentivize them to work towards achieving that badge as well. So it kind of raises it to, a more like special status. Paulina, if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, raise the stakes. So sometimes a badge can translate to physical rewards as well. Maybe you're not giving a sweater to every single person, but maybe everybody who gets a badge by a certain date is entered into a draw to win something great as well. So I would recommend looking into specifically what type of membership you have. As many people know, I love tea. So if I was part of a tea membership and I had a bunch of badges and I was looking to take it to the next level, I would offer, some really good tea shop gift card or specific tea equipment, maybe a nice gooseneck kettle. Those things go for like $250. So think about raising the stakes as well if you do want to build some excitement over that as well. There's some opportunities to really make sure that it's niche specific to what your business is about, and just kind of kicks it up a notch, in addition to just having badges as well. Another thing that we do sometimes is converting into free months as well. So, you can get 20% off the year if you complete this specific badge. So a lot of potential there just to weave in things other than just a badge. But to Tyler's point as well, I think having better visibility around celebrating that milestone and reminding people why it's important is really essential to maintaining that feedback loop as well. And keep in mind that you can get a badge for an action you did 6 months ago, but there's still inside of a membership that need to continue making progress. So there's always going to be a potential for new monthly badges as well. And I think that's all of the questions today. It's been really fun kind of chatting through this. As I mentioned, the actual setting up the badge piece, pretty straightforward, pretty fast, but the sitting down and thinking about what's going to make a big difference for your members, that takes time, that we recommend that you do, just in mind with the things that we covered today as well. So just as a last reminder, content consumption doesn't equal progress. Think about diversify how you look at that. Consider the relationship between gamification and retention, the fact that it can 10 times your engagement as well, and use it as an opportunity to spice things up and have fun as well. So I'll pass it back to you, Tyler, to close us off.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Paulina, for joining us. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you guys got some, real value from this, and you can see the potential and, the opportunity that implementing gamification can have inside of your program. So make sure you complete your homework, do that fast action checklist. And if you're wanting to, dive into it a little bit deeper, and you're wanting to sort of come up with more creative ideas for badges, and, coming up with some of these manual badges to reward people, make use of AI. Jump over to ChatGPT and literally just talk to it and explain what you want, right? Say, I have a membership on such and such, a dog walking, and I want to reward my members and get them more engaged. Can you come up with, a series of different monthly challenges that I can reward people for completing, or, creative badges that will highlight them, taking action, making progress in my program, and to just make sure that, they're staying engaged and involved. And, it'll spit back a list of great ideas. Like ChatGPT and different AI models are great for brainstorming and, just generating a ton of ideas in a fraction of the time that it might take yourself. So take advantage of that. That would be my suggestion. Do your homework. And as always, thank you guys for joining us for Creator Hacks. We will be back again next month with a new topic, teaching you more about, new ways to level up your membership and get the most of membership.io. So thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.